Hello and welcome everyone to Instant Transmission, a podcast where we discuss everything Dragon Ball and how many grains of villain does it take to make a Frieza. Tonight on episode 3, we'll be discussing the Dragon Ball movie release, Resurrection F. We'll once again be making quite a few comparisons between the movie and the Golden Frieza saga within Dragon Ball Super. So if you need a refresher or just want to listen to more Dragon Ball content, be sure to check out episode 4 on Instant Transmission Podcast where we do a deep dive. Once again, I'm joined by my co-host, Todd.
Hi.
And Todd, why don't you give us a quick, detailed review of this movie's release?
Absolutely. So Resurrection F came out in 2015 in April. And one of the things that I thought was interesting when I was looking this information up is that Dragon Ball Super, the anime, came out in 2015 in July. So just a few months after the release of Resurrection F. And I think this could actually be a big indicator as to why some of the animation early on in the anime was lacking, because they just did not give themselves a lot of time between the two. But the movie itself is gorgeous, and that's what we're talking about today.
That's right. And with those details out of the way, let's kick off the discussion of the contents of the film, Resurrection F. And the movie begins with, well, what I thought was actually the introduction of a studio with a bunch of bats and 3D fish and a bunch of weird stuff flying over a red background over a waterfall. And this leads us into what I believe is hell.
Yeah, the little CG fish and whatnot is weird. Leads us into what looks like the same scene that we get in the anime with all of the animals dancing and singing around a cocooned Frieza.
And we need to really dive in one day as to what the rules are to resurrection and why some people keep their body and some people only keep parts of their body, because it's good old Mecha Frieza without all of Frieza's parts all stuffed into a cocoon.
Yeah, it does seem strange, and we've in the afterlife we've seen some people are usually set up as ghosts. Actually, it is a little bit odd because I think King Yemma even tells people that if they are good, they get to keep their body. I don't know. Maybe this is just Frieza's spirit in some way, shape, or form.
I mean, that could be the case. Or as long as you're exceptional in either direction, you've earned it.
I'm sure Frieza's earned every bit of the torture he's getting in this scene.
But it's just a brief moment we spend with Frieza because it quickly moves on to, if you've seen Dragon Ball Super, at least our breakdown from last episode, you would know that the Frieza forces, which are the remnants to, I guess, Frieza's empire, are still out in the universe, and we cut to them in their kind of beleaguered state.
Right. And a lot of this is very similar to the anime. One of the quick things that I wanted to point out is the character, this frog like character on Frieza's ship, looks very much like the character Frog from the Chrono Trigger video games, which is all the art from those games is done by Akira Toriyama. So I just thought that was a funny little character connection there.
You know, it's funny because I've played that game, but I had no idea that there was any connection between Dragon Ball and that game, and that's hilarious.
Yep. All the art from that game is done by Akira Toriyama. So I just thought that was funny. I had to look them up to be sure, but I was like, man, that looks familiar.
But we cut to the remnants of the Frieza forces, and we get once again Sorbet is kind of the leader on that ship. He's kind of calling the shots, and you hear all the distress calls from all the different forces that are deployed in different areas, and he's telling them to call back. And one thing I did notice is that I feel like when we get introduced to what's his name, Tagoma,
Yeah,
Tagoma, I feel like his character is kind of dealt with a little bit differently even from the onset.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about this too because his character seems different. He does get picked to go with Sorbet to go to Earth again, just like in the anime. But I think once we get to Frieza being resurrected, there's a little bit more I wanted to talk about that. Did you have more about him?
Yeah, it's when we're first introduced to Tagoma, it's you almost get this sense of feeling that there's almost this push for him, like he's kind of questioning the leadership's call rather than asking questions that need to be asked. And it's, I think his inflection at least is different already from the onset of this movie. I don't know if I'm perceiving that or if it was just something subtle that I'd picked up early on, or if it was just a difference between the way voice actor portrayed that character in the movie versus the series. I'm not sure, but I noticed a little bit of a difference there right on the onset.
I think we'll see that that difference is going to be important as we get a little bit further in here. So
That's
that's a
true. That's true.
it's a good
They,
detail.
and we're moving very quickly compared to how long it took for the series to do stuff, which is becoming a pattern with the movies versus the series. But they decide very quickly that they can't track down the Namekian Dragon Balls, and their only option is to go to Earth, and they want to send in a small team so that way they're not detected.
Right. So we get Taguma and Sorbet going down to Earth. Shisami is basically stays on the ship to take care of the rest of the Frieza forces. Quickly cuts over to Sorbet and Taguma on Earth with the Pilaf gang, and the Pilaf gang is helping them track down the Dragon Balls.
Yeah, when they showed up, I believe the Pilaf game had already found 6 of them, and they just needed to find the 7th Dragon Ball, which was located at the bottom of one of Earth's oceans. And I believe Sorbet tells Tagoma to swim down to the bottom of Earth's ocean and find it, which is an impressive feat.
Right, it's pretty neat. This is very similar to the anime. The scene is a little bit different. We're on the water instead of in like a cave, I think, from the anime. And we get the Pilaf gang. They've been trying to get the Dragon Balls themselves, so they decide to try to attack Sorbet while Taguma is underwater. And Sorbet turns around and blasts their weapons out of their hands with his little ring laser gun.
Oh,
Um,
ring laser gun. I wonder if that'll come up again later.
yeah, it's probably not important. Uh, I did want to point out though, I so whereas with the Battle of Gods movie, I felt like almost every detail in the Battle of Gods movie was better than the anime. My tune is going to be a little bit different today. This is one detail that I actually liked in the anime a little bit better, if only because when Sorbet shoots the weapons out of the Pilaf gang's hands, it doesn't show. It feels like the ray gun has very little power. And in the anime, he blows a chunk out of the stone in the cave behind them. And it feels like the ray gun is just much more powerful to me. It's a small little detail, but obviously it's going to be important later on.
I think that is important. That's something I'd not really registered the first time I saw it. And I think maybe well, all this stuff was written around the same time. So there wouldn't have been, I guess, a chance for the writers or anything of the series to really kind of adjust to crowd feedback or anything. So this must have been just a personal decision.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the like we talked about, the anime came out shortly after this movie. So, I mean, the anime definitely, you can tell that they made at least a few, I'm going to say improvements in the anime, and we'll talk about those as we go.
But after Taguma swims down to the bottom of the ocean, grabs the Dragon Ball, the Pilaf gang attack plan obviously fails. The dragon is now summoned, and there are 2 wishes, I believe, that can be granted.
That's another important detail I wanted to talk about too, is the fact that in the movie there's 2 wishes, which I'm pretty sure at the end of the Buu saga is how Shenron was set up. But I think in Dragon Ball Super the anime, they changed Shenron again to be able to grant 3 wishes instead of 2, and they don't really give us an explanation. It's basically just tweaked again.
See, I don't remember clearly, but I thought it was basically you had like wishes that were big or small, and you could get 1 big wish, 2 medium wishes, or 3 small wishes. So you could kind of combine them depending on what you're trying to do, is what I thought it was.
They've definitely changed and tweaked it over time, and it's kind of been hard to keep up with. I would probably have to go back and just confirm on the Boo saga, but I thought that they had made it when Dende took over. I thought they had made it 2 wishes.
Why not 5 wishes?
We'll just give them more options.
Come on, Dende, get to work. I want more wishes. I wish for more wishes.
That's right. Get some genie action here.
All right. And so after Shenron is summoned, I believe it's very similar to before, where Sorbet wishes for Frieza to be brought back, even though Shenron had kind of advised against it, since Frieza was chopped to bits and blown away. And I thought this was once again interesting because I don't get how someone can be blown up on a planet and brought back, but someone can be blown up with key energy and can't be brought back or something. I'm really fuzzy on the rules here.
That's because the rules are really fuzzy, and we talked about it in the anime too. It's almost the same situation here. It doesn't make a lot of sense as to why they changed this detail. They just decided to change it. I don't know.
And
Maybe it was.
they had two wishes. Why not wish for Frieza's body to be restored and then wish for Frieza to be put back into that body? We could have done it that way.
Right, exactly. And instead, we kind of get the gag of the Pilaf gang wishing for a million Zenny, which is fine. We don't get King Cold resurrected, which they talk about here again, like they did in the anime. And we eventually go back to the ship where Frieza is placed into the healing pod. And we get a pretty cool scene. The visuals are really neat of him healing and growing his limbs back. And he eventually breaks out of the pod. Very similar scene to the anime, just better animation here, honestly.
And it's sometimes it's easy to miss how nice the animation is because of how quickly the stuff happens. That Frieza bursting out scene is only a second or two, but it's animated very, very well. And it's one of those ones I had to kind of flip back and watch again just to really drink it in.
I did too, and it's paced really well too. It's really well done. I mean, Frieza gets out of the pod and just spits the healing splooge all over everybody. It's really cool to watch.
Oh yeah. And I think everyone loves when Frieza shows up to the scene. So I'm happy every time I get to see Frieza pop out.
I think too, if I remember right, this scene has the song that I really like. The Frieza, 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 Frieza.
Is that like the punk rock kind of sounding song?
Yeah, it is. I wish they would have used that song more in this movie, but I think the moment that Frieza shows up is when they chose to use it.
It actually kind of caught me off guard to hear a song in Dragon Ball that actually referenced Dragon Ball. It was kind of jarring to me.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. They've started doing more stuff like that in recent years with Dragon Ball, and I like it. I dig it.
I don't mind. It's fun. I'm having fun with it, and that's all I really care about.
Yeah, and so we basically get a slightly different sequence here as Frieza gets resurrected, where Taguma is maybe you have more to say on this, where Taguma is basically telling Frieza, like, hey, why would we go back to get revenge on the Saiyan that killed you? Let's just, worry about the rest of the universe.
Yeah, and it was I don't the way it came off to me is it was not him trying to, I guess, outdo Frieza. It was him trying to give his best opinion on it. Like why are we worrying about revenge right now? We've got an empire we need to put back together. Why don't we do that? And then we can go deal with those Saiyans. And this is where the movie takes a radical turn from
Mhm.
what the series had done. And if I remember correctly, Frieza takes Taguma, places him up against the spaceship window, and then blows him out the airlock, basically, sucking him and many other of the crewmen off of the ship until an emergency shutter is like pushed shut and it stops. And that's the last we see of Taguma.
Yeah, we get rid of Taguma real fast. This is in the first 15 minutes of the movie, and Taguma gets killed out in space. And I like this. I'm a little bit torn because we don't get to see Taguma progress, but I think it's a much more elegant solution to dealing with Taguma than what they did in the anime.
Yeah, I like Taguma's story arc better in the anime up until Captain Ginyu takes him over. I thought he had actually a really good story arc up until that point.
Yeah, and I can agree with that. I think for the purpose of the movie, which has a much shorter time frame, it probably makes sense to cut Taguma's story arc.
Yeah, it's fine. It worked for the movie because it's kind of a one-off watch sort of thing. So I didn't mind it because it kind of made it exciting, basically watching the same thing over again. Like, ooh, this is different. All right, I'm in. I'll watch this.
Yeah, absolutely. I also really like the idea. To me, Frieza's an asshole. Frieza would not put up with, somebody questioning his authority, especially who's this fucking new guy? Like,
Hey, Frieza's a well-spoken asshole, and let's make sure we get that clear.
Oh man, I don't even remember what the word is that he uses, but Sorbet says something like, I don't know what that word means. Salubrious. That's what it was.
That's what it was. Yep. And that's always kind of been part of Frieza's character is being well spoken, almost like I'm going to use high class speak because I'm not a commoner like the rest of you. I'm going to be eloquent. I'm going to be powerful. I'm going to be intimidating. I'm going to be all these things that just prove that no matter what I do, no matter what I say or look like, I am better than you. And I love that about Frieza.
I agree. I love that about Frieza too, and they do a very good job of it here with the dialogue. The English dub actors do a fantastic job, and even the scene of just Frieza powering up in his ship is really well animated. So they did some great stuff here, and I think that kind of takes us back to Earth, where we get introduced to Jocko for the first time once again.
Yes, the salubrious Jocko. I don't think I used that word right. But yes,
Uh,
we get Jocko or Taco or whatever you feel like calling him. He shows up at Bulma's work and the receptionist won't let him in despite how much he wants to get into Bulma's office.
Everybody's trying to get into Bulma's office.
Hey.
I actually liked how this was handled in the movie a little bit better, rather than he just basically like shows up and he's with Bulma. I like him having to go to Capsule Corp and them being like, "We don't know who the hell you are. Like, what are you doing? What do you want?"
Yeah. Capsule Corp's response was basically me, the viewer's response. Why are you here? Please go away.
Yeah, which is why I like that because the viewer feels the same, right? The viewer's like, "We don't know who you are. What are you doing?"
All right, Christmas episode character, get out of here.
And so we basically get Jocko telling Bulma about Frieza being resurrected again. And it kind of moves its way towards Krillin taking care of the bandits in a brief little scene. They covered that a little bit differently where Bulma was not involved there. And then Bulma tells Krillin about Frieza, and then we get the same scene from the anime of Krillin getting prepped and ready for the fight with Android 18 shaving his head,
And
and
his Bay teen mentions how cool he is, and I love that.
it's so good. We talked about it in the anime. The dialogue is almost the same here too.
It is.
Krillin flies away, and she's like, "Oh, he's so cool."
I
And I
mean,
think
I agree. He is really cool. You're a lucky girl there, 18.
absolutely. So we kind of skim through that since it's pretty similar to the anime. We go back to Frieza's ship briefly as Frieza's kind of planning his revenge, and then it jumps over to Goku and Vegeta training with Whis.
Okay, so when it jumps over to Goku and Vegeta training with Whis, it's all pretty similar to the show, and they do that, I guess, alluding to the I guess the takesies backsies power that Whis has, where Beerus shows up and he sneezes and he blows up one of the moons, and then Whis mentions that Beerus had blown up, I believe, the stars and around Beerus's planet, and they had to do a do-over before, and he explains the temporal take back or whatever, temporal do-over is what it's called. And that's
Right.
kind of the, alluding to what's probably going to happen into the future sort of thing.
Yeah, and this is actually one of the details. It's a small detail, but I liked the way that this was handled better in the anime. The movie almost over explains the temporal do over. Like it gives you all the details and all the information about it. I liked that all they said in the anime was basically that Whis had done a do over. And I think you even said that the first time you watched the anime, you almost missed that detail because it's so subtle. And I actually like it being more subtle.
I did because it was just kind of a quick, kind of off the cup comment that Whis had made in the anime. It wasn't something that anyone asked him about or anything. He's just like, oh, well, we don't have to do a do over like before. And that was it. And the anime is stretched out so much longer that there's so much more time to forget about it. So in this, 90-minute-ish movie, when you really explain something like that, you don't get a lot of time to kind of forget what he had mentioned.
Right. This kind of feels like it's slapping you in the face with that information, which I was kind of like, I like the subtle delivery a little bit better. But
And
again,
I mean,
minor.
my thing is because I watch the anime, then watch this, I know what happens. So I can't tell if I'm looking for it now that I've already seen it.
That's a good point too. And I've watched this through multiple times in both formats. So maybe I'm just being nitpicky or overly looking for details that I already know about.
I mean, you kind of have to when you're comparing two very similar things. The details matter.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. So we more or less move on from Beerus's planet, and it jumps at that point right into Frieza's ship landing onto Earth. And we get to see I think you described it last time as like a beehive of all the soldiers coming out of the ship.
Yep, and the same thing happens, and I love the pacing of these movies because it's Frieza's ship lands, soldiers come swarming out, Z fighters are on the way or are just arriving on the scene, and Frieza. I don't know. Did this happen in the anime where Frieza decides to get everyone's attention by blowing up an entire city?
It did not. I wanted to talk about that too because I love that. I really like that Frieza just shows up and murders thousands of people for no good reason, just at just on a whim.
Like, oh, I need to let them know I'm here. Time for genocide.
See, that feels very Frieza to me.
It
Like that.
really does. The ruthless tyrant.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's just like this little death beam from his finger. He's still in his, base form. And I mean, it's just him kind of flexing on Earth.
Oh yeah, and Frieza has an ego to feed, and there almost is a little bit of like, I guess, a poetic nature to Frieza, where it's Frieza doesn't want to just kill people. Frieza wants to inflict torture and pain, and you know that Frieza probably wouldn't have cared to have blown up that city if Frieza was just there to grab Dragon Balls or something, because that's a waste of time. But I'm sure Frieza knew that by blowing up a city, it would piss off Earth's like Z fighters and inhabitants and definitely get Goku's attention. So there was purpose behind that city blowing up, if you ask me.
Yeah, 100%. I was sad that that got cut in the anime because it's a really good detail. But
I'm sure the people of that city aren't sad.
they're like, "Woo! Dodge that bullet."
Thank God history doesn't repeat.
Yeah. But that basically gets the attention of the Z fighters for sure. They show up on the scene, and more or less we kind of jump into the fight with the thousand soldiers here. And I love this in comparison to the anime because we get some really cool fight scenes with all of our side characters. What did you think about this, Dayton?
Can I go ahead and say that this is Master Roshi's best fight sequence in modern Dragon Ball? It
Hell
was
yeah.
so good. I loved him throwing down his little walking stick, and it just like people fucking pile into it, and he jumps up and gets them all with the Kamehameha wave. It's so good. It is Master Roshi's best appearance.
Absolutely. And I mean, in some ways, they're really pushing it by letting Roshi fight in this fight. He's
Don't care.
probably yeah, exactly. Like he's probably weak enough that he could be killed by any one of these guys. But man, it's so good. I love Roshi and I love seeing him in action. So I'm glad that they're giving him a chance to shine.
I mean, my thing is when I step back and take a look at power levels, they're kind of silly at this point. So I kind of don't care. It's just the numbers
Right.
are in the millions or billions or something ridiculous. So let's just power levels don't matter. Here are your favorite characters. Watch them fight. Just enjoy it. Just eat it. It's junk food. Just love it. It's bad for you, but you love it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I enjoy this. They do this much better than they did in the anime. We get a couple of shots of Jocko fighting, which I don't think we really got to see Jocko fight in the anime very much at all.
I think there were a couple really brief scenes where he was firing his laser gun or something like that. The movie does a way better job of showing him actually do stuff.
Hmm.
But I do remember in both the movie and the anime, Jocko does a little bit of fighting and then mentions to Balma that he's only going to take out the weaker ones.
Right. Yeah. Jocko's a bit of a coward, and they do a pretty good job of characterizing him, which I like that. The fight sequence here too is pretty long. We get a pretty cool scene with Piccolo basically just fighting with his feet for a little while. We get Tien doing some actually really cool martial arts moves. One move where he locks a guy's arm, it looks like an Aikido throw. So I really like too that they're almost going back to their roots of real martial arts. I mean, obviously exaggerated, but still, it's a little bit more realistic with the showmanship.
I like seeing it. It's fun when you can actually see, like, oh, that's an actual headlock or that's an arm bar or something like that. It's always fun to see that kind of stuff. The other thing I want to bring up too is that during this whole fight sequence, and I know this is something that we talked about when comparing the Battle of the Gods movie with the series, is the backdrops that they were fighting in.
Yep.
This was a very colorful backdrop where we had Tien fighting in a cave and we had Krillin in the woods and we had Jocko like on the edge of a mountainside jumping down and up and jumping off of branches and stuff. There was a lot of different areas that people were fighting and it made it like a lot of fun.
Absolutely, yeah, and it makes a lot of sense too because they're all trying to like separate these soldiers and get out of the main mass of them so they don't get overwhelmed. But yeah, visually, it's phenomenal. It's much better again than what they did in the anime in terms of scenery, at least, because I think we basically get them on like a plain or a plateau in the anime, and that's pretty much the only scenery that we see at all.
And I do think that Krillin wasn't done nearly as dirty in this one as he was in the series.
I wanted to ask how you felt about that. We don't get the sequence of Krillin being afraid to fight in this. Krillin's actually a badass in this, just like all the other side characters, which I was pretty pleased with.
I mean, I liked this a lot more than before. I don't mind having a little bit of hesitation from him, having that internal fear because he was killed by Frieza.
Yeah.
But it was way over the top in the series, and he was frozen in fear for a long time, and he wasn't doing anything. And Master Roshi had to tell him that you're actually not a bitch. Go do something. And then he started fighting. Whereas in this, he kind of was, I guess, getting a little out over his skis and just a little out of practice, and he ends up running into a tree, and Gohan has to save him, and I'm fine with that. That feels very Krillin. Krillin's kind of he's a little bit of the jokey humor guy, so I don't mind a little bit of that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think when we were talking about the anime, we both, for the most part, liked some of the sequences, like Master Roshi telling Krillin, hey, I trained you, like you are a good fighter. We liked some of that stuff, but I think I agree with you in that I think it was just too over the top where they tried to make Krillin feel like he was so scared and so afraid to fight and just kind of almost like he was just a failure in that moment. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, the paralyzed in fear is a bit much. Krillin is he's one of the strongest fighters on Earth. He's trained his entire life, and just having him show up and just lock up in fear, it didn't feel like somebody who was arguably a master in martial arts.
Yeah, yeah, I think they did a much better job in the movie with him. We get to see Gohan kind of help Krillin out when Krillin runs into the tree. There's a cool sequence of Gohan just hitting a bunch of guys' pressure points, which I thought was really fun. We get to see Jocko, running on a cliff like you were talking about, and I think eventually the Z fighters more or less take out all of the soldiers, and that's where Shisami jumps into the fray
That is
against
not what I thought
Piccolo.
you were going to say. And that's where Shizami.
Throw you a curveball.
All
So
right. So Big Red shows up, right?
yeah, Big Red Bull man. Now I wanted to talk about this a little bit because let's talk about the fact that this guy goes toe to toe with Piccolo. Now Piccolo is uh, let's say if even if he hasn't gotten stronger since the Cell
Oh no.
Saga.
Oh no, you're going into power levels, aren't you?
Oh, I sure as hell am.
All right, let's get controversial.
So let's say if Piccolo hasn't even gotten stronger since the Cell Saga, where he was as strong as Android 17. Android 17 at that time was stronger than any of the Super Saiyans. Now, Shisami is fighting on an even level with Piccolo, who was stronger than any of the Super Saiyans at that point. And Frieza, in his heyday, was the same power as Super Saiyan Goku, more or less. So does that mean that when Frieza was resurrected, that Shisami was stronger than him?
Oh, that's not the question I thought you were going to ask. Okay. That's a really interesting question.
Yeah,
Maybe.
like I think you could maybe in this version explain it away by saying that maybe Shisami was the one that Frieza trained with instead of Tagoma. and then maybe Shisami got stronger by training with Frieza. They don't tell you that by any means. They don't even imply it. But that's in my mind, that might be my own headcanon to explain away why Shisami is stronger than Frieza used to be.
That's I guess I didn't think about that. Yeah, because Piccolo. I mean, should should okay, all right. You can't just introduce these questions on me. Okay, this is breaking my mind. I don't know. I'm just gonna leave that there because that you just introduced. You opened a whole can of worms that I wasn't ready for.
Yeah, I just couldn't help it when I was saw that bit with Shisami, and I was like, it would be really funny if Frieza were resurrected and Shisami was like, "Nah, bitch, I'm stronger than you. I don't care."
Yeah, yeah. Oh boy. But I mean, that's a pretty typical Dragon Ball plot hole. So we'll.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of digging for holes at that point. Power levels are always a fucking nightmare in Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I get what they were trying to do, and it's weird because it's also out of shape Gohan sticking up for Piccolo, who I don't think Piccolo ever really stops training. At least he doesn't get soft. At least, so
right.
I don't know what the power levels are. I don't get why. I don't know. I just have a lot of questions, and I'm not going to ever get answers. So
Yeah,
whatever.
in the end, yeah. In the end, they did it so that Shisami was relevant in these fights, right? That's the main reason why they made him as strong as he is. And that's the only thing that matters. But I just
But
thought it
I
was
mean,
funny.
it doesn't matter for long because as soon as Gohan steps in and deals with Shisami, I believe not long after that, Frieza decides to step in, right?
Yes. So Super Saiyan Gohan deals with Shisami, and then Frieza just goes down, gut punches Gohan, and knocks him out to the point where Gohan can't even swallow or chew a sensu bean.
Well, he technically died, right? Like Piccolo had to basically restart his heart.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, it's he basically got the Piccolo defibrillator, so
Well, those are handy. It's a good thing he's got those.
yeah, it's just like his clothes beam. But I wasn't as big of a fan of this as I was in the anime once more because in the anime, Frieza blindsides Gohan with a ki blast through his shoulder when Frieza sees Gohan turn Super Saiyan. It's basically Frieza's anger and retribution towards the Super Saiyan form that really drives him to attack Gohan. And we don't get that same sequence in the movie, unfortunately, which I really liked that sequence.
And it definitely, yeah, you're right. The series definitely lets it hit home a little harder. It makes more sense. And on top of that, I mean, Gohan is out of form, but at the same time, he's still Mystic Gohan. He's still a very powerful Super Saiyan level plus being. And then Gohan staring right at, look, mind you, it's Form 1 Frieza as well. Staring right at Frieza, being able to just one shot Gohan like that, it felt really weird. It really felt like power levels were all over the place and that things were just sort of happening for the sake of drama. And this is something that becomes even more clear once Goku and Vegeta show up later on and stuff like that. Like, a lot of the stuff I don't like.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, they do kind of imply, especially later in Super, that Gohan isn't able to tap into his mystic form or his mystic powers anymore. And even looking at the transformation, sometimes it's hard to tell, but the Super Saiyan 2 transformation usually has lightning accompanying the aura. So this transformation for Gohan does not. So it seems like he's only in regular Super Saiyan form. And then combine that with the fact that he hasn't been training and his power's probably gone down. I don't know. It's like you said, the power levels are all over the place. It's weird, but I don't like the drama here as much as I liked the drama in the anime.
Well, let's go ahead and, I guess, earmark this page because there's something very similar that happens with, I guess, when Goku and Frieza, spoiler alert, fight later on in the series.
Yeah,
And it's another power level disparity slash form confusion thing that I really don't like. But
yeah,
we'll get there in a little bit. Actually, in not very long.
yeah. Pretty shortly here. So we do briefly jump back to Whis and Beerus and Goku and Vegeta, and they finally get in contact with Bulma. Bulma tells them to get to Earth quick. And this is all going by much faster than it did in the anime. We don't get the sequence. Another thing that I don't like here, we don't get the sequence of Gohan being tortured by Frieza too, which I really liked in
Oh,
the anime.
yeah. I did like that in the series. I like that in the series a lot.
Yeah, and the one thing that I did like here though is that in the anime, it felt a little bit weird when Gohan kind of like sacrificed himself to power up, if only because he didn't really know that
Yeah.
his father was going to be instant transmissioning in and looking for a beacon. But at least here, when the Z fighters power up, they're being told by Bulma, "Hey, Goku's trying to get here. Power up, motherfuckers."
Yeah, and that makes a lot more sense because in the series, it was just like, why is Gohan just burning himself out? Oh, because he needs more power, I guess? Whatever. Oh, Goku showed up, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and Gohan basically said that he did it to get Goku there, but it still felt weird. Like he didn't know that Goku was searching for them at the time.
Yeah, I would have liked that sequence a lot more if, say, Goku and Vegeta were training in that other dimension and then Gohan did that, no one showed up. That would have been a much better story arc.
Yeah, that would have been really interesting. Really build the tension there.
Oh, yeah, like, you need to stop relying on Goku. You gotta win your own battles.
Well, I don't think that that'll happen anytime soon.
Oh, come on.
Wishful thinking. But as we all know, Goku and Vegeta show up to save the day. There's less drama here. Another thing, actually, that we didn't cover: Piccolo doesn't die in this one. He doesn't die like he did in the anime, which I'm perfectly okay with because that death in the anime was not done well.
It was terrible. It was a cheap grab at old heartstrings, and I didn't like it.
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with them not having that in the movie. So we skip past that. Goku arrives. Frieza says, "I'm going to my final form because I don't want to make mistakes." And I actually, the even just his transformation from his base form to his final form looks really good in the movie. I like the way it's done.
I like that a lot. Actually, I like that transformation. That's probably one of my favorite transformations I've seen in a minute, just because I like that old Frieza form, and I like Frieza going into it. I'm glad they finally gave it a little bit of a dress up.
Yeah, I agree. I like that base form too, and even just the when he transforms, like it takes a little bit of time. There's some screaming and a build up. The aura looks good. The sky turns dark once he goes into his final form, and we get this sweeping camera view around Frieza's final form body. Looks great. I love it.
It looks fantastic, and then normal form Goku is enough to keep up with it.
Yeah, actually, normal, and you're right. Normal form Goku has the upper hand when Frieza's in his final form.
I dislike this so immensely.
Do you? What?
So immensely because we gave Frieza like 7 different forms of powering up and now they were all useless. So get the hell out of here. Also, at the same time, why do your first 7 forms not really grant you any power, but spoiler alert, the one after that seems to grant you a lot of power. Like the jump is too severe between forms.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, to your point, I mean, it's a little bit weird. I mean, so base form Frieza was strong enough, like way more than strong enough to beat Super Saiyan Gohan. I mean, I guess he wasn't in Super Saiyan form technically when Frieza punched him, but still,
I think we can assume it was.
yeah. You get the impression that base form Frieza was still plenty enough to handle Super Saiyan Gohan. And then final form Frieza is just basically getting pummeled by base form Goku. So
Yeah, and that's my thing is you give all these characters all these different levels of transformations. And then I guess I don't know, Dragon Ball goes out of their way to make every form below that as meaningless as possible at every opportunity, and it drives me up a freaking wall.
yeah, that part is a bummer. They do a better job of that in the manga. They use more of the forms and actually have some differentiation between them. But yeah, the anime unfortunately just says, "All right, this is our shiny new transformation, and we're going to use it all the time."
Which I mean, I'm fine with say Frieza goes into Frieza's final form and Super Saiyan 2 is more powerful than it. Okay, cool. I dig it. But base form Goku's more powerful than it? Like what is up with these transformations?
Yeah, that's true. It does seem a little bit odd. But I do like the fight sequence though here between Goku and Frieza. It looks much better than it did in the anime.
It looks fantastic, and it's also I noticed that at least they didn't use much reused footage throughout the fights.
Yeah, did you notice any at all? I actually didn't really notice any.
I don't think I did. I was trying to look for it. I know in the series I noticed a lot of the same animations used, but not in the movie. The movie, everything looked fresh and pretty sweet. There might have been something snuck in there cleverly, but I didn't notice it.
So the only thing I wanted to mention here, it's not reused animation. There's one sequence that was just a weird cut, where Frieza, I think, teleports above Goku, creates a big ki blast and fires it at Goku. And in the moment, Goku's just like waiting there as the ki blast comes in. And then when it cuts to Frieza and then cuts back to Goku, Goku is already like mid Key Blast struggle with Frieza.
Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
They didn't show Goku fire off a Key Blast. It's it's not a huge deal. It just was a little bit jarring to me. I was like, oh, we're in a Key Blast struggle. Like, oh, okay, all right, sure.
So people have heard them, they've heard the complaints about people talking about how they reuse animations, and they're going to go one step further and just not show you animations at all.
Yeah, apparently that's the new budget cuts, but it's again, it's a minor nitpick. This movie is gorgeous. I love the animation in this movie.
I mean, maybe the movie needed to be cut down because there's too much or something like that, and that's what they, that's one of those little snippets they cut out or something. But I did notice that, and it was a little bit jarring just to go from "here comes the blast" to "oh, we're in the middle of a key battle." Okay, all right, I guess I'll accept this.
Yeah. It's funny because it almost feels like there was supposed to be more to that sequence, and they maybe had to cut it down for time or something. It's a little bit odd,
I
but
mean, that's fine. It gets a pass. It's way better than Goku flying back up to Beer 7 times after being knocked out of the atmosphere. So
and
I love it.
our 4 or 5 kamehamehas.
Everyone sounds like it's the final one, so you gotta make sure you
Yeah.
put the echo and the roaring effect in there.
Yeah. So we, as Frieza and Goku are fighting, we basically get Vegeta butting in again. This sequence is done so much better in the movie. It's much shorter, feels much less awkward, much more in character for Vegeta. What did you think about this, Dayton?
I still more or less don't like the idea of the scene, but I do agree it was done better in the movie. Vegeta, I think he kind of butts in and says, "Hey, you said we would take turns. It's my turn." That makes sense to me because I don't think either of them are really taking Frieza that seriously at this point. But I'm not sure if I'm not sure if it needed to be there. It feels forced both times, but it feels even more forced in the series.
Yeah, and that's a fair take. I think I was just so relieved that it didn't feel as awful as it did in the series while watching the movie that I was like, "Oh, that was done much better. Good job."
Oh, speaking of things that weren't in the movie, and this might be technically a little bit ahead of where we are, but that awkward clapping scene in the series, I don't think happens in the movie.
That is this scene. That's this exact same scene.
Okay, all right. I thought it was around this point. I couldn't remember.
Yeah, that's the part that I absolutely did not like. It felt super awkward. So I was
Okay,
glad they cut that.
just the cutting of the clapping scene makes this at least 3 points better.
Yeah, I would agree. But we basically move on from that. Vegeta tells them to stop messing around, and Goku and Frieza move back to the ground to show each other their power.
Yeah, whip out your power cell and let me feel it.
Oh yeah, and they whip it out, and Goku is first. So, what did you think about the Super Saiyan Blue transformation in the movie, Dayton?
I thought it was fine. It felt like it was actually a little bit too quick for me. If this was supposed to be the big reveal, it didn't feel like the big reveal. It felt like kind of a reveal, which I guess I don't know. I don't know how I felt about it. If this is supposed to be a big deal, they should have made a bigger deal out of it, but it was okay.
I agree with you. So, I first saw this in theaters when it first came out, and I was blown away by the Super Saiyan Blue transformation. I loved it. And I think I even felt differently than a lot of people who felt like, oh, it wasn't earned, whatever. I was like, oh, this is awesome. He's got a new transformation. This is going to be a cool fight. And I loved the way like the blue flecks kind of peeled off of him. But watching it a second time, I thought it was super lackluster. It's way too fast, and there's not a lot of build up, there's not a lot of yelling. I love me some Dragon Ball yelling.
It's important.
Yeah. So it's better done in the movie than it is in the anime. I'll give it that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree. I don't know. I think it's is it done better in the movie than the anime? Because I felt like they were very similar. I'd have to actually watch it and see it because they felt almost identical to me.
They are super similar. The only thing that I like better in the anime, or I'm sorry, in the movie is it's just a little bit prettier. The animation is a little bit better than it is in the anime.
See, I think in the Battle of Gods movie, the reveal of the Super Saiyan God was the best transformation reveal, I guess, between the four reveals we've seen between the Super Saiyan God movie and series and the Blue movie and series. I think the Battle of the Gods movie did the best reveal out of all four of those combined.
I would agree with the ceremony, and the ceremony looked really good in the movie, and the transformation and everything. And I'm not even a big fan of that form of the Super Saiyan God
No,
form,
no, me
but
neither. But just the like they did like the clouds moving and like the earth
mhm,
and heaven were singing and all this other stuff. And if they made it a big deal and they actually like kind of slow rolled you into it and they showed you it and they presented you it. And I mean, whether you like it or not, you could tell they did their best to make sure that you knew that this was a big deal. And I did not feel that Super Saiyan Blue did the same thing.
I completely agree with you. Now, here's an interesting take, maybe. So
No.
we we're about to get the golden Frieza transformation. Now, what do you think here? Because I really like the Golden Frieza transformation. I thought it was well done. It's a longer reveal than Super Saiyan Blue, and I wonder if they did a shorter reveal for Super Saiyan Blue so that the Golden Frieza transformation stood out. What do you think about that?
I mean, I guess they could have done that, but I guess at the same time, I think you could have done both of them. I don't know if they specifically tried to do that. I can't really read it one way or the other. I
Hmm.
do agree though that I think they spent not a lot, but a little bit more time on the Golden Frieza transformation. I guess partially because w- we've gone through a lot with Goku and Vegeta and different transformations and stuff like that, and this is more of a moment for Frieza to achieve a new form than it is for Vegeta and Goku. So I guess for me, I would want to spend a little bit more time on Frieza. So maybe they did it on purpose. You could be onto something there. I do like I guess, the transformation overall. Like I said, it doesn't feel a lot different than it does in the series, but it felt good. So I don't mind the Golden Frieza transformation. I still think there could be a little bit more to it, though. There needs to be a little bit more oomph to it when I see it, and I want to feel the transformation. I don't want to just see it.
Yeah, that's fair. I could agree with you that it could use a little bit more oomph. I liked that it had more screaming. I like me some Dragon Ball
Whoa,
screaming,
hey.
and we get a little bit of a light show, which is fun. I liked some of the animations of Frieza screaming too, which was fun. But yeah, it's I thought it was a good transformation. It's not the best transformation.
It's all right. I'd be.
Yeah, that's about what I'd give it to. But that moves us into the fight between Super Saiyan Blue Goku and Golden Frieza.
This is a long fight, but holy shit, I think it is great.
Yeah, yeah, especially when compared to the anime. The animation is good, the fight sequences are good. I think we're gonna break it down a little bit in detail here because there are a few things that I love in this fight.
I love that at the very first, even from the first blows they're swinging at each other, you can feel the weight behind every single punch or kick that's thrown. And just, it's animated beautifully. And you can tell that they're doing a good job of, at first, they're trying to make them seem like they're on the same level. And they're both hitting each other with the same weight of attacks right out the gate, at least for a little bit.
Yeah, it's close. Now, whereas base form Goku was just pummeling final form Frieza, I actually felt like they tried to show Golden Frieza is has the advantage in Golden versus Super Saiyan Blue. It's close at the beginning, but it definitely starts to move in Golden Frieza's advantage.
It's one of those things where I think Frieza's getting a little bit of the better of Goku, but after the fight prolongs and it's that over and over and over again, it starts building up and you can see all the battle damage. It's starting to build up in Goku as the fight kind of, I guess, goes on.
Yeah, yeah, you get a cool scene of Frieza like spinning Goku in midair. There is a little bit of some CG animation here. I will say it even from the Battle of Gods movie to this movie, the CG animation has improved. It looks better. It's still a little bit jarring, but it's not
Just stop
the
doing
worst.
CG. Just stop doing CG.
I think it's a budget or time thing, but yeah, I agree. It doesn't look good. They used it on the soldiers, like in the Thousand Soldier fight, and I'm totally fine with that. If you need, dozens of people on screen at one time and you want to do CG, fine. But not in the big fight with Goku and Frieza. It just doesn't look good.
Yeah, I think I agree, but there are just and I mean there's a couple spots where they're kind of doing the 3D like flying through the air, going up the side of the mountain sort of stuff, and it looks fine because it seems like they animated the or CG'd the environment, but then actually hand animated the fighting sequence that was happening in front of you. And so it
Right.
looked fine. It's just one of those things where in a few years it might not look great though. That CG might really stand out.
Yeah, I mean I mean we're watching this 6 years after it's been released and it's already looks pretty dated, so
Yeah, it doesn't look terrible, but you can tell it's there.
yeah, exactly. But there's some good scenes with I think Goku and Frieza go into almost looks like a topped volcano, like a little mountain plateau thing. Frieza is just like easily dodging some of Goku's attacks and then returning with some of his own. And there is something I wanted to note here, and actually I meant to bring it up earlier, but this sequence in particular feels weird to me with the sound. Whereas the sound in Battle of the Gods was really good. I thought the music was well done and the sound effects were well done. This sequence in particular, like the fight with Goku and Frieza has no music for a long period of time. And then towards the end of this fight sequence, they start with some cool music, some fun, like actiony, upbeat music, but that goes for about 60 seconds of the Frieza and Goku fight, and then the scene changes to show us Beerus and Whis show up, but the, like, actiony fight music is still going. It's timed really poorly. I don't know what they were thinking with that, but I just wasn't a big fan, it felt jarring to me.
I guess honestly, I didn't even really notice the music in this fight, and I usually at least make a quick little note of the music, like, "Oh, this is cool," or it started in. I honestly somehow missed it. This whole fight. It was just kind of there at some point, and I don't know. It could have been better. I definitely agree with you.
Yeah, you might have missed it because it's basically there's no music. It's weird, it felt weird to me.
It did. Man, okay, yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because that was one of those things that I had completely missed. So, come on, guys, get to work on that.
Yeah, and I mean, Battle of the Gods had some really cool music moments. So I'm trying to think if there were any really good ones in here. There weren't a lot. I liked the Frieza's introduction, but during the fight, there's not a lot of good music moments.
I mean, it's gonna be hard to beat, you will not destroy my planet, cue metal guitar, and then just ass whooping happening. It does
That's
not get much better than that.
that's an incredible moment in Battle of the Gods. Such a good moment.
And that was after a great underground fight scene. So it was just good sequence after good sequence with good score into another good sequence.
I think that's why it bothers me in this movie so much is because they did such a good job in that movie, and then this movie they kind of dropped the ball on the music a little bit. But regardless, we'll move forward there to Beerus and Whis show up, tension gone, and they basically get their Sunday, and we eventually get Frieza notices that Beerus and Whis are there, and he asks if they're going to intervene, and they say no. I mean, all typical. It's the same as what they did in the anime, more or less.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot that they do different between these few scenes. I will say that not long after that, there's a great sequence where Goku and Frieza they're fighting and they're just Goku is almost skating across the water's surface and he's like jumping over shots and vaulting over them and just the way he skates across the surface and just the background behind him, everything looked fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, I love that sequence. The key blasts where I mean, Goku looks like he's just dancing on the water, dodging these key blasts, and It's super cool. I love that sequence too. There's actually a sequence where he's like going up the mountain away from those key blasts, and then he almost does like what you would imagine in a video game where you double jump, but he gets to a point like in midair and then pushes off, and you see like this ring of ki encircle his feet as he's bouncing off of it. It looks gorgeous. I love that sequence.
There are so many small little touches that they did with this. And one thing I definitely noticed, and I was actually paying attention to it, is that their smoke animation during all these fights and throughout this whole arc were fantastic. The way smoke would move around Key, the way that they would fly through it, and the way it would kind of disperse around them.
Ooh,
Whoever was
yes.
doing the smoke animations on this, and maybe it happened in the God of Destruction movie as well, but I noticed in particular in this movie, the smoke animations were fantastic.
That's awesome. See, that's a detail that I didn't pay close attention to. It was probably one of those things where it was like so well done that it was just seamless and not something that I paid attention to.
Yeah, because that's something that's going to be in the background and not necessarily the forefront. It's the thing that your hero's flying through, not behind.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes sometimes when those things are done well, you don't notice them, and then when they're done bad, that's when you really notice.
Exactly. Yep.
But we basically get through the fight here. They did this part with Frieza's weakness a little bit different than the anime.
They
So
did.
in the anime, Vegeta pointed out Frieza's weakness, but here both Goku and Vegeta basically recognize it more or less at the same time. Now, I don't know how to feel about this. I think I like it better in the movie because to me, Goku's dumb, but he's also a fighting savant. So I think it makes sense for him to recognize Frieza's weakness.
Yeah, and I don't know. To me, it's kind of that has to do with sensing ki, and Goku's been sensing ki far longer than Vegeta has. So I think he would have a better his head wrapped around that a lot better than Vegeta would. So I would prefer it if both of them did it versus just Vegeta, because that doesn't make much sense to me.
That's a good point. I think even in Dragon Ball Z Abridged, they make a joke that sensing ki is kind of Goku's thing. So,
Fighting in
so
ki, that's all that man does.
you know. So from there, we basically get the fight continues until Goku gets to the point where he gets punched in the face and just completely no sells it. And they one of my favorite fight scene sequences here is as Goku no sells that punch to the face. He puts his hand up to Frieza's chest and gives him the Bruce Lee 1 inch punch.
Yep, I've got that note right here. I was just like, "Woo, Mister 1 Inch Punch here."
Oh man, it's gorgeous. It's so cool. I think in the past, Akira Toriyama has even mentioned that he's taken inspiration from Bruce Lee for Goku. So I love that that's incorporated into the movie, into this fight sequence.
That's so cool. I love seeing that. And that's one of those things that if you know what a 1 inch punch is, you cannot miss that. It's so great.
Yeah, I really like that part. So we basically get at this point the tide of the fight has turned where Goku's beating up on Frieza. He shoots a Kamehameha at him. One of the things I thought was a little bit weird is that Goku's like firing the Kamehameha directly at the planet, which maybe he just assumes that Frieza's gonna soak it up, so he's not endangering the Earth. I don't know.
I mean, maybe he held back on it too because he knew Frieza was pretty much low batteries.
Yeah, that's also possible. And then we after the Kamehameha, we basically get Goku telling Frieza to, leave the planet, blah blah blah. And we get a really cool, at least from an animation standpoint, sequence of just Frieza's rage here. What did you think about that little part?
I mean, I liked it in the series and I actually like it in the movie too. So I like all the little water spouts and stuff that was coming up from Frieza, just expelling all that just anger. And I don't know. The To me, the big thing to talk about during this sequence is the way that Frieza, I guess, gives the command to what's his name, Sorbet.
Right.
I
Yeah,
think
so go
to
ahead.
me that's the bigger conversation because they were both, I guess, in both the series and the movie, they were both angry, they were frustrated, they were beating the ground, just kind of losing their minds. But in this one, at this lowest low of Frieza, that's when he looks over it and gives the henchman basically the like that look of you know what to do sort of thing. And I like this way better than the series. It was
Yep.
way more subtle, and it was something that was very ominously hinted at way earlier in the movie. This was handled way better, I think, in the movie than it was the series.
I think I even made a comment about it in our last episode because it was actually I had it in my mind like this sequence where Frieza basically just gives Sorbet a quick little nod, and in the anime he like I think he says something to him like you know what to do or something like that, or like something along those lines. But I like the subtle nod much better, like you said as well.
I thought it was much better. I definitely prefer the movie to the series in this regard, anyway.
Yeah,
And I don't like necessarily everything being right on the nose. I like making me think every now and then.
yeah, and I mean Dragon Ball is not a big thinking anime, but every once in a while it's nice to at least leave a little something for the audience to kind of infer or guess at.
Yeah, just a little bit to chew on.
Right. Now, I will say the very next sequence I like in the anime more, which is the fact that in the movie, Super Saiyan Blue Goku gets shot by Sorbet without powering down beforehand, and Sorbet shoots Goku from the front, which annoys the crap out of me.
Yeah, I agree with that. You're right. It's the movie gets a win pretty quick and then loses it almost immediately afterwards. I loved that in the anime, Goku fully let his guard down and then is shot with the ray. Love it. That is exactly what Whis had warned him about. In the movie, he's still Super Saiyan Blue. You assume his guard's still up. He's still ready to battle, sort of thing. That probably shouldn't have happened.
Right. And I think I mentioned when I first saw this, I mentioned last time in the last episode, when I first saw this in the movie, I was upset. I didn't like the fact that Goku got taken out by a ray gun. I've since changed my tone on it a little bit, but I realized too that part of it is the way that it's handled in the movie because he's still Super Saiyan Blue. He gets shot from the front. It seems like he should be on guard at the very least if he's in Super Saiyan Blue, at least a little bit. You could argue one way or the other, but in the anime, they solve all those problems. They have him power down, so it seems like he's, not ready for a fight. And I'm pretty sure that Sorbet is standing at the very least a little bit cockeyed to him, a little bit behind him. So he shouldn't be able to see it coming like he should in the movie.
I mean, shoot, what was it? Way back in the day, I think Raditz caught a bullet from a farmer. so,
Yeah.
so we're how many levels of power level above roughly that? Because I'm assuming a ray gun's not a huge step up from a normal rifle. I guess as far as weapons in the Dragon Ball universe.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's stronger, but
Yeah,
maybe not by magnitudes. And I mean, at this point, like you said, Goku's probably 87, 921 Raditzes. So
yeah. Like there should be a just I don't know. There's no reason that should happen when Goku has his guard up. I have no problem with Goku having his guard down and then just, basically full power down and then someone sneaks up and gets him. I'm fine with that. But the
right.
fact that he had his full Super Saiyan Blue, he was ready to fight, he was prepared, and then he just gets shot like that, I don't think so. Because we've seen fighters like that catch ki blasts from behind them all the time. Like that's
Yeah.
nothing new.
Yeah, and that's a good point. The only thing that I could think here, and I think we talked about it briefly last time, is the fact that Sorbet is very weak. So he probably doesn't even register to Goku in terms of, key
Ooh, God,
necessarily.
that hurts. That
Yeah.
hurts, Todd.
Yeah. Poor Sorbet. He'll get his in a second.
Oh, yeah, he will.
But then also the fact that it's not an actual key blast. It's coming from a tool, from a ray gun. But you're right. We've seen multiple scenarios previously where fighters have protected themselves from blasts from behind too. So I don't know. It's hard to say what would actually catch Goku off guard necessarily.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about, I guess, the rules behind ray guns and blocking them and all that stuff, but it felt very off. And I don't know. Goku is ready for battle. That shouldn't have happened. He's so far above beyond that they should have done it better. I have no problem if he powers down, lets down his guard, and then gets hit because he's been warned about this 1,000 times. But
Right.
whatever. I guess it happens, and now Goku is lying there on the ground with a big old open wound in
That's right. So, from our opinion, point to the anime on this one.
him.
But
Yes.
basically, we get Frieza, kicking and stomping Goku, torturing him. Fantastic job again, Shemo with the screams in this moment. Really well done.
Hmm.
Vegeta shows up to help Goku. He gives Goku to Krillin more or less to give him a sensu bean. Vegeta defends Goku from Frieza's ki blast, or defends Krillin, I think, actually. And then we get Vegeta powering up to Super Saiyan Blue to fight Golden Frieza. What did you think about Vegeta's Super Saiyan Blue transformation, Dayton?
I mean, wasn't it more or less just a copy paste of the previous one?
More or less. I honestly thought it was a little bit better. Maybe it was more screamy. I don't know.
I mean, it didn't really. I don't know. Neither of the blue transformations really did it for me.
Yeah.
So it's whatever. It's neat, especially since we just saw it. Like, oh, he can do it too. I'm so surprised considering they were both training at the same spot at the same level for the last 6 months or whatever it
Right. I
was.
think the only thing here for me that as a Vegeta fanboy, I'm like, yes, they gave it to Vegeta.
But they gave it to him after Goku had already fought the big baddie and basically
Yeah, I
won.
know. But we didn't even get to see Vegeta get Super Saiyan God. So I was excited that he got blue. But yeah, Vegeta's always playing second fiddle to Goku.
Hey, Super Saiyan God is so that movie that came out 2 years ago. Okay.
It's true. So Super Saiyan God is 2 years dated as far as transformations go.
Yeah, so he gets the transformation. I believe Frieza at this point realizes that he cannot win, but still tries to, I guess, fight Vegeta pretty, I guess, futilely for just a little bit. I don't think it's very
No,
long.
now I love this sequence. Very much similar to the anime. This is some of the best fighting sequences that I mean, possibly in Dragon Ball. Maybe it's just because I love watching Vegeta beat the fuck out of Frieza. Super cathartic. But no, really, the animation in this is fantastic. What did you think about this?
I do like it. I guess the Frieza just trying to overwhelm Vegeta with Ki Blast looked fantastic. Just the way that they're all impacting, and once again, the smoke here looks really good. It's a weird thing to point out, but the smoke animation is really good in
Oh,
this movie.
it's a good point, and I wish I would have paid a little bit closer attention to that. But there's even little details like Frieza just spitting out of his mouth as Vegeta punches him in the stomach. We see like Frieza's body contorting backwards as he gets punched or kicked. It's really well done, and Vegeta just is calm faced even after Frieza insults his Saiyan heritage and is just like easily dodging Frieza's attacks. I don't know. I love Vegeta, so this is one of my favorite sequences.
Well, Vegeta also doesn't do the Goku treatment of sit around in normal form and just draw it out and then whip out your big power. Vegeta's all business. It's I'm straight into Super Saiyan Blue and I'm ending this fight.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean he's got good reason to do so. But
Yeah, you do.
we basically get to Frieza powering down, not of his own choice, but going back to his final form instead of his golden form. Vegeta getting ready to ki blast the crap out of him, and Frieza destroying the planet. What did you think about this compared to the anime for this sequence?
They both felt very similar. I actually did note that during the anime series, the destruction of the Earth actually looked really good during that.
Hmm.
And it looks very good during this too. I'm not There are some subtle differences between the way I guess Frieza blew up the planet in the series versus the movie. I'm not sure any of them are large enough for me to really pick out a winner. So
Yeah.
I'm willing to say that they both do it about the same. Just in general, I generally like the movies, I guess, a little bit more with this stuff because it feels like the pace is usually a little bit better. And just, I guess, the edges are a little bit cleaner when they animate a lot of the other things. So, but more or less, I would say it's on par with the series.
I would agree. The only thing that I felt was missing here that I liked from the show, and this might be, a pacing thing, was I liked that they showed the families and the friends of the Z fighters who survived. They showed like Videl and Satan, and they showed the Briefs, and they showed Marin and 18. You got just these little snippets of those characters. I mean, being killed more or less on Earth, and I liked that that kind of pulled at your heartstrings a little bit.
Pull at your heartstrings for about, I don't know, 15 seconds.
Hey, man, at least it's something.
Yeah, so Frieza blows up the planet, and that's when Whis brings up that, I guess that Chekhov's gun, the temporal do-over, and once again tells Goku that you have a chance to make this right. And was there anything really different about these chain of events, or was it all more or less the same? Because I didn't really notice much different.
I think you're right. I think for the most part, I mean, this goes down just like it did in the anime. They rewind time, Goku blasts Frieza, and the day is saved, and Vegeta is angry.
Yeah, man, Goku just stole his kill. Come on.
Yeah. I think Vegeta even calls him a glory hog or something like that.
Oh yeah, I think. Well, actually, we talked about this before we started this podcast. I still wish that Goku and Vegeta would have reversed roles during this whole Frieza saga story arc, just because Vegeta charging in and getting the kill at the very end would have felt so much better.
Yeah, and I was going to bring that up too because Dayton actually came up with this really cool idea. Did you want to explain it a little bit further?
Oh, just I guess the what if Dragon Ball Z, that idea.
Yeah, I mean, just if those two guys flipped roles, right? You had brought it up before we started recording the podcast with Vegeta, more or less being alive with Whis and Beerus, and then getting to do the do-over, right?
Yeah, it would have been. I mean, the thing is Goku's already had his vengeance on Frieza after killing Krillin and all that on Planet Namek. So the second kill on Frieza really doesn't mean that much to Goku.
Right.
But Vegeta's kind of been under Frieza's oppression for all of his early life. Frieza took away his planet, his parents, most of his friends, and pretty much everything. And so, if you're going to bring Frieza back, it would have felt so much better to actually let Vegeta kind of get that win, because that would have been one hell of a good win for Vegeta. And all you really had to do is more or less kind of flip flop. And obviously, you got to change a couple little things, but flip flop Goku and Vegeta in the Resurrection F movie or the saga. And suddenly you've got a very meaningful Frieza defeat versus just another villain being thrown back to hell. And I really think they could have done that, and it wouldn't have changed, I guess, a whole lot. Like I said, some small things would have to be changed, and some of the context would change, but I think most of it would change for the better.
Yeah, and I think we talked last time about this from a slightly different point of view, where my thought was originally that if they just got rid of the temporal do over and let Vegeta kill Frieza in the moment that Vegeta is going to kill Frieza, it would be much more satisfying. But I actually like your idea better, where Vegeta, we still basically get the scene of Frieza, using his dirty tactics and blowing up the Earth, but then we get Vegeta being the one who goes back in time and gets to kill Frieza, and Vegeta gets his win basically, and that would be so much more satisfying.
I would have liked that. I would have liked that just so much better, but instead we get Vegeta's win taken from him, Goku diving in and saving the day again, and it's Frieza just beat again, and I feel like at the end of this I wanted so much more. I really did. I'm not saying I'm disappointed with the fight sequences and stuff like that, but I am disappointed that the end of this just felt like a pretty typical Dragon Ball ending when there was so much more they could have done with it.
Yeah, and Frieza's probably my favorite Dragon Ball villain. So I always love getting more Frieza. At the end of the day, though, the things that I like about this movie are Frieza's dialogue and then the slick animation in the fight sequences. For the most part, that's about it.
Yeah, I guess since we're already kind of doing it anyway, I guess I'll give my overall thoughts, and that's I think I, this movie was good, but I felt like when I watched the God of Destruction movie, I was blown away by that. For the most
Yeah.
part, I loved almost every minute I was watching that movie. This one, I liked a lot of the fight animations, but I wasn't as hooked in or sucked in as I was during the God of Destruction movie. It was good, but it wasn't great. And so there are some areas where I have to knock off a few points. So I think the whole Vegeta kind of being done dirty again, the transformation reveals were a little lackluster to me. Power levels were obviously not really well thought out during this. But I mean, it also did some things better. I think especially that Piccolo sacrifice just being omitted was a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, the funny part is the fact that the movie came out before the anime, so the Piccolo sacrifice got added in, which is just ridiculous. But
We need some more heartstrings. Tug those heartstrings.
yeah, exactly. So the funny part is that they make a comment about how they have to go collect the Dragon Balls to bring back the city that Frieza destroyed. So instead of using the Dragon Balls to resurrect Piccolo like they would have had to in the anime, they have to use them to resurrect the people from the city, which is a little bit of a shift there.
Yeah, and once again, there are no actual consequences, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically everything goes back to the status quo at the end of this movie, right? Frieza's back in hell. I mean, Goku and Vegeta still have Super Saiyan Blue. They basically just got a chance to try it out. That's about it.
Oh, jeez. I mean, it was fine. It was a good movie. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it, but I'm just saying there are some areas they could have done better. And I mean, I wouldn't mind watching this movie again down the line. I think it's a good entertaining flick. Like there was plenty of fighting and stuff like that. It wasn't too slow.
Yeah, I agree. I think I liked this movie much more on my first watch. I was really impressed with it, with the animation and everything, and I liked seeing Frieza. On consecutive watches, both the series for this arc and the movie, there are just things that feel a little bit off or unnecessary or could have been done better. But I still enjoy it. I love the action. The animation is really well done in this one, and I always love getting to see more Frieza.
Well, hell yeah. So yeah, is there anything else you think we needed to talk about?
For the most part, I think that wraps everything up. We kind of glossed over the fact that the very tail end just shows Frieza back in hell, but that wraps up not only the Golden Frieza arc in the anime, but also the Resurrection F movie. So this has been our discussion of Dragon Ball. This is your host, Todd.
And Dayton.
And that's it for this episode of Instant Transmission. Be sure to tune in next time as we take a break from our regular formula and we deliver something a little bit new and exciting for everyone listening at home. No spoilers, but there might be a certain devil involved.
Ooh, I like that. Drop those breadcrumbs.
So thank you for joining us, and to all our fellow Dragon Ball fans, stay safe out there, and remember to keep rocking the dragon.
All right, I'm done.